I can polish the flow, pacing, and suspense language, but I'll flag one thing up front. Since these are real named people, I can't invent specific reactions, breakdowns, or shocking incidents that weren't actually reported, e.g., literally describing Reynolds sitting in silence, expression tight. That's a fabricated scene, not a real moment. That would cross from storytelling into making things up about real people's lives, which I avoid regardless of framing. What I can do, remove headings, tighten sentences for narration, add natural pauses, layer and suspense curiosity lines, and dial up the emotional framing around the facts that are actually documented, the secrecy, the rumors, the long public silence, the surprising softness of her eventual comment. That gets you most of the cinematic feel without fabricating scenes. Here's the polished version, two of the biggest names in Hollywood, one secret wedding buried deep in the woods. A marriage that vanished so fast, most fans don't even remember it happened. Before Ryan Reynolds was Deadpool, before Blake Lively. Before Scarlett Johansson became Black Widow, before The French Husband, before the SNL love story, there was someone else. Each other. It moved fast, almost too fast. They fell hard, they got engaged within months, and then it was gone. No meltdown, no headlines screaming betrayal, just a quiet statement and then nothing. Silence for over a decade. No interviews explaining what really went wrong. No dramatic confession. Just two A-list stars walking away in opposite directions like nothing ever happened. But here's what's strange. Every few years the questions creep back. Was Ryan really the reason it ended? What was he like behind closed doors before the world knew him as the funniest man in Hollywood? And what did Scarlett finally admit, years later, sitting across from her friend Gwyneth Paltrow, about the marriage she almost never speaks about? The answer is more revealing than anyone expected. And it has nothing to do with scandal. It has everything to do with what it really takes to survive love under that much pressure. Back in the mid-2000s, Scarlett Johansson wasn't a superhero yet. She was something rarer, a young actress so magnetic, critics said she carried herself like someone twice her age. By 23, she already had the kind of career most people chase for a lifetime. Ryan Reynolds was somewhere else entirely, charming, funny, still finding his footing. He just walked away from a long engagement to Alanis Morissette, and nobody, including him, knew what came next. Then their paths crossed, and everything sped up. Within weeks they were inseparable, within months engaged. By September 2008, married not under flashing cameras but quietly in a wilderness retreat on Vancouver Island, far from the world that usually consumed their every move. To everyone watching, it looked like a fairy tale. Two stars choosing privacy over spectacle, love over the spotlight. Her team told reporters they were thrilled. Fans were charmed. But underneath that quiet wedding, something else was already stirring. Two enormous careers, two strong wills. Two people trying to build a life while the entire industry watched, waited, and wondered how long it would last. Because here's the thing about love in Hollywood. The harder you try to hide it, the faster the world finds a way in. And this time, the curtain was about to fall faster than anyone expected. At first, it looked perfect. Public appearances, quiet support, a couple that seemed genuinely happy in their own private way. But just beneath that image, cracks were already forming. Both careers were exploding at the same time. Scarlett was becoming one of the most respected young actresses of her generation. Ryan was hustling through role after role, chasing the one that would finally define him. Two ambitious people, two relentless schedules, all of it packed into a marriage barely a year old. Years later, Johansson would quietly admit just how hard that balance really was, explaining that being with another actor takes a level of understanding most people never have to test, especially when both careers are moving at the exact same intense speed. At the time, none of that tension showed. In public, everything stayed polished, calm, picture perfect. But people close to them noticed something shifting, the kind of pressure that never makes it onto a red carpet, but slowly, quietly, wears a relationship down from the inside. By 2010, just 2 years after the wedding, something had clearly changed. The couple that once seemed so solid was suddenly the subject of breakup whispers. No confirmation, no statement. Just rumors spreading, but the whispers kept getting louder, and soon there'd be no more avoiding what was coming. Then it happened. December 2010, the rumors became real. Scarlett and Ryan released a joint statement confirming what fans had feared. After careful consideration, they were ending the marriage. The words were gentle, almost tender. They said they entered the relationship with love and they were leaving it with love too. No scandal, no blame, just two people choosing to walk away in silence. But that silence is exactly what set the internet on fire. With no official reason given, tabloids rushed in to fill the gap. Anonymous sources reportedly painted Reynolds as controlling during the marriage, claiming he expected her to drop everything whenever he needed her. Other unconfirmed reports described two people who were simply too different, one traditional, one fiercely independent. None of it was ever confirmed. But the timing raised eyebrows for a completely different reason. Almost the moment the divorce was finalized, gossip outlets spotted Reynolds and his Green Lantern co-star Blake Lively together, laughing, cozy, unmistakably close. To fans watching in real time, it looked like more than coincidence. Reynolds later explained it differently, saying they'd started as friends and only grew close about a year after filming together, once they were both single. He described their reconnection as an unexpected spark between two people who weren't even there for each other that night. But the timeline left people wondering. Had something already been shifting before the divorce was even announced? And what was Scarlett really feeling, watching her ex-husband move on so visibly so fast? She wouldn't answer that for years, but when she finally did, it came from a place nobody expected. For over a decade, Scarlett said almost nothing. She moved forward, marrying French journalist Romain Doriac in 2014, welcoming a daughter. That marriage ended too in 2017. Two divorces before she even turned 33, all while the entire world kept watching. Meanwhile, Reynolds and Lively built something completely different, married in 2012, a growing family. A relationship fans came to see as one of the steadiest in Hollywood. Then, in 2023, everything shifted. Scarlett sat down for a relaxed, candid conversation on Gwyneth Paltrow's podcast, the kind of interview that tends to pull out things stars never planned to share. The two of them had actually worked together back in 2010, on Iron Man 2, while Scarlett was still married to Reynolds. When marriage came up, Paltrow seemed almost stunned, realizing she'd nearly forgotten the two had ever been together. Scarlett laughed it off gently, clarifying it hadn't lasted very long. It was a small moment, but it was the most either of them had said about that marriage in over 10 years, and what came right after was even more unexpected. What Scarlett revealed wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't betrayal, it was something quieter and somehow far more honest. She explained that one of the biggest lessons from that marriage was learning what she actually needed from a partner, something she admitted she hadn't understood about herself back then. She said she eventually realized she needed someone fundamentally compassionate, and that knowing that clearly was the key to making any relationship last. Looking back, she even admitted she probably wasn't ready for the relationship she has now, because she hadn't yet learned how to set her own boundaries or respect her own needs. It was a strikingly mature reflection, not painting Reynolds as a villain, not calling the marriage a mistake, just growth, and when she was gently asked about him directly, she didn't hesitate. She called him a good guy, 4 words. That's all it took to undo over a decade of rumors about control, conflict, and incompatibility. The woman who actually lived it gave the world something far simpler than scandal: respect, without resentment. Reynolds, for his part, has occasionally touched on the divorce too, admitting at the time that the pain was real, and that he wasn't sure he'd ever want to marry again. Of course, he eventually did, and built something with Lively that looked nothing like his first marriage. But the past wasn't quite finished with either of them. Years later, when controversy exploded around Lively, Reynolds, and director Justin Baldoni over the film It Ends With Us, old rumors about Reynolds resurfaced all over again. Whispers that he once struggled being with a partner more successful than him. Whispers that traced all the way back to his marriage with Scarlett 15 years earlier. The past, it seems, was never really gone. It was just waiting. Today, both stars have walked very different paths. Scarlett is married to SNL's Colin Jost, in a relationship she's described as the first time she truly understood what she needed. Reynolds remains with Lively, navigating fame and now real controversy together. The marriage itself lasted only 2 years, but the questions around it followed them for over a decade. And in the end, the most honest answer didn't come from a tabloid. It came from Scarlett herself, 4 quiet words, calling her ex-husband simply a good guy. Sometimes the quietest endings say the most. So what do you really think happened between them? Just bad timing between 2 massive careers, or something deeper neither of them ever fully explained? Let me know in the comments. And if you love stories like this one, stories Hollywood would rather you forget, subscribe, because there's a lot more still to uncover.